The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus passed through towns and villages, teaching as he went and making his way to Jerusalem. Someone asked him, "Lord, will only a few people be saved?" He answered them, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate, for many, I tell you, will attempt to enter, but will not be strong enough. After the master of the house has arisen and locked the door, then you will stand outside knocking and saying, 'Lord, open the door for us.' He will say to you in reply, 'I do not know where you are from.' And you will say, 'We ate and drank in your company, and you taught in our streets.' Then he will say to you, 'I do not know where you are from. Depart from me, all you evildoers.' And there will be wailing and grinding of teeth when you see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, and you yourselves cast out. And people will come from the east and from the west, and from the north and from the south, and will recline at table in the kingdom of God. For behold, some are last who will be first, and some are first who will be last." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Ever since I accidentally locked Father Bart out of the rectory last year when he was coming back from his vacation, I didn't know he was coming back in the middle of the night, I've been a little bit worried I'm going to do the same thing to Father Deary this year when he comes back from Rwanda. I don't really know when he was coming back from vacation. I probably should have figured that out before he left. And so just in case he was coming back, I left the door unlocked every night this week, hoping that he might arrive. And sure enough, last night he arrived. He got there at the door, and the door was unlocked for him. And he didn't have to sleep in the garage all night like Father Bart did. And he didn't have to experience what the man in the gospel today did, where he gets there too late and everyone's already gone to sleep, and he's calling out to the master of the house to unlock the door. And here's the reply from within, "I do not know you." Now, the point of Jesus' story is not that he keeps the doors locked against us exactly, or that he wants to lock us out. It's a reflection on how we get into the house and where we go. Enter by the narrow gate, Jesus says. There is a door, and the door is unlocked, but you have to find that door. And, I guess Father Deary, he came back last night from Rwanda, but he's only home for basically to do his laundry. He's then going to continue his vacation here in the United States. If he ever actually comes back to work, I'm going to say, "Father Deary, who? I don't even know you anymore. Where are you from?" But we don't want that response from Jesus. And I guess we could take the gospel today as a warning. We probably should. That it is possible to be shut out of the house, to be shut out of the kingdom. Even in eternity, we can be shut out of heaven. We call that hell. And that's a very real possibility. But before we ever get to the afterlife, we can also experience something like hell here on earth, where we shut our hearts off so completely to God and to others that we end up in a lonely prison of our own making. That's a very real possibility in this life too. And so part of the lesson is to keep the door open, to keep our hearts open always to God and to others, because Jesus is there knocking at the door of our heart all the time, inviting us to greater life, inviting us to come. If you hear my knock and you open the door, Jesus says, "I will come in and dine with you." There's this great vision today Jesus has of all these people coming from the north and from the south and from the east and from the west, all dining in the kingdom of God. God has kept his heart open, his door open to all peoples, and so many people come streaming in. But to get into the feast, Jesus says, you've got to go through the door. You've got to go through that narrow gate. Where is this gate? Where is the door that's unlocked? Well, Jesus in another place says that he is the gate. "I am the gate of the sheepfold," he says. "If you come in and pass through me, then you will come into the sheepfold and find pasture and find life." Jesus is the open door, and we have to go through him to get into the kingdom, to get into salvation. He is that door. He's not keeping the door locked against us. If we find a locked door, it's because we've locked the door. And really, if that experience of hell, that experience, Jesus' memorable phrase of the outer darkness where there is wailing and grinding of teeth, if we're out there out in the cold, it's because we've locked the door from the inside. We have the key. Today, Jesus gives us the key to salvation. He gives us the key to the door. That's the good news. Again, in another place, Jesus says that he has the key. He says, I am the first and the last. Do not be afraid. I once was dead, but now I live forever, and I hold the keys to death and to hell. So he's given us the keys. We have the keys. That was the problem with Father Bart last year. He didn't bring his keys with him. If only he had brought his keys, he could have gotten in and not had to sleep in the garage all night long. He could have gotten in. I saw this Facebook post recently where a man was talking about, I guess his son brought the car out on a trip somewhere, and he got out wherever he was going, and all of a sudden the key fob of the car stopped working. And he kept pushing the button. It must have been out of battery or something. Nothing was beeping. Nothing was unlocking. And he panicked. He called the locksmith to come and rescue him. And the locksmith arrived and said, let me look at that key fob. And he said, now, here on the key fob, he said, there's something called a key. It swings out, and you put it in the keyhole, and you unlock the door, and you can get in the car. And this young man, I guess, didn't know that, or how quickly we forget these things with all these modern technologies. There are things like keys that manually turn locks. And the locksmith was so amused, he didn't even charge for the visit, I guess. But, we have the keys in our hand. Jesus is giving us the keys today to unlock the door, to go into life. I don't know if you've ever seen or gone to make like a copy of a key at a hardware store, and it's kind of a neat process. You hand the key over, and they give it like the metal blank key, and they start shaping it. They start forming it, and to make a perfect copy of the key, you start forming the edges of the key, you start filing the different teeth of the key, and it's a whole process. And all of a sudden, there's a match. And if the key goes into the lock and turns the lock, then you have a perfect match. It works. And I wonder if, in a way, that's what's happening to us in our life. We're constantly being formed. We're constantly being shaped into the image and likeness of Jesus in our life. Even difficult things that we experience, even great suffering that we experience, it's all part of that formation process. Today, in the letter to the Hebrews, he says, do not disdain the discipline of the Lord. Something that's very hard, something that's of great suffering at the time, that seems to be a cause not of joy, but of pain, of sadness. But later on, he says, it bears the fruit of righteousness in perpetual peace. It's all for a purpose. It's so that we can be conformed in our life and shaped in our life into the image of Jesus, into his image and likeness. And if Jesus is the key to salvation, if we match Jesus, if we copy Jesus, then we have the key as well. It's all part of formation. At the beginning of a new school year here, this is always the time in the parish when we start talking about faith formation again and all the different opportunities we have. We are so blessed here at St. Michael's Parish to have a wonderful faith formation team, to have so many opportunities for formation at any age. It begins with even the little kids in kindergarten, first grade. They go out for the Team Jesus and go hear the readings. It's so great to see them. And many of them participate in what's called Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. Right over at Michael House across the street, there's something called an atrium, and that's a place where they go and learn about the Mass. They use a Montessori method of education to learn about the Mass, and it's unbelievable. These kids know more about the Mass than we do, and they fall in love with it. Last Sunday at Mass, there was this little boy. He must have been like 2 or 3 years old, and he came into the communion line after his mother. And his mother received communion. Then he came up, and he put his hands up like this. Now, he was obviously too young to have made his first communion, but he just perfectly had his hands out like you would teach a child to do. And he stood there waiting for me to give him communion. And I had to say, you're too young there. And I gave him a blessing, and his mother grabbed him and brought him away. But my heart hurt not to give him communion, not to give him the Eucharist, because he so desired it. He so desired it. And I'm sure there are many advantages and disadvantages to having our sacraments so early in life, but now with the confirmation in the 3rd grade. But the beautiful thing is that these young children want to receive the good things of the Lord. And it also makes it clear that, formation doesn't end when you receive your sacraments. We receive them very young now. Formation is a lifelong process. And so yes, as the kids get a little bit older, they're ready to receive their sacraments, to prepare for that, and prepare for first reconciliation in the second grade, prepare for confirmation and first Eucharist in the third grade, and we'll have our sacramental prep program starting in just a few weeks, and there'll be some information about that going out. You should register as soon as you can. I think our information is already out there. We're making a few adjustments this year to make it possible, give families different options, because that's such an important time when we're receiving the gifts of the Lord. But it continues. It continues with 4th and 5th grade. The 4th and 5th graders have rock, paper, scriptures, and then the middle schoolers have wildlife youth ministry, and the high schoolers have their youth ministry. Many of our high schoolers just got back from Steubenville East and got back from the Young Life camp this year, and they had great experiences. But it continues. Even when we're adults, there are so many opportunities to be formed in the faith. And pay attention to some of them coming up this fall. In just a few weeks, we have the Rescue Project happening. That's a great opportunity to learn what it means to be a Catholic disciple. It's sort of the basics of Christianity. It happens on Wednesday nights. We have our Women's Bible Study, Walking with Purpose, beginning again on Tuesdays, both in the morning and the evening. We have men's groups that meet on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. We have our Friday morning Bible study for men and women. There are so many opportunities. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming here. And so actually my recommendation, my challenge to you this week would be, as you hear about all these opportunities over the next weeks at Mass and in the bulletin, think of one thing that you could do to engage in formation, to engage in growth. Maybe to find something that would even challenge you a little bit, stretch you a little bit, because if we're never stretched, if we never grow, then we're not engaging in this process of formation. Jesus wants to shape us into his image. He wants to shape the community of disciples into the church, into that key of salvation that's provided for the world. Imagine if we all did that in some way. Father Geary would get back a few days from now or a few months from now from vacation, whenever he's coming back, and he would say, "What happened here at St. Michael's Parish? It was a hopping place before I left, but look at it now. So many people trying to grow in their faith. So many people coming together to support one another as we grow, as we learn, as we are shaped and formed into this beautiful image of what Jesus wants us to be." Let's continue to keep our hearts open to that invitation of Jesus, however we hear it, to say yes when he calls, to say yes to greater growth, to say yes to that process of formation that continues our entire life until we hear one day that voice of Jesus saying, "Come into my kingdom that I have prepared for you from the foundation of the world."